Welcome. This channel is dedicated to your spiritual growth. Tune in each day to stay grounded amidst the ever-changing complexities of life. Let's embark on this journey together.
Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty mind-blowing. The default mode network. You know, the DMN. Might not be a household name, but trust me. This thing is running in the background of your brain right now, and it's messing with your creativity big time. And get this, we're not just talking cutting-edge neuroscience here. Ancient traditions, Buddhism, Taoism, they're all saying the same thing about this DMN. It's like a creativity killer. But could it also be a secret weapon? I'm definitely intrigued and a little freaked out, honestly.
What's wild is how these traditions, from totally different times and places, like we're talking centuries apart, they all landed on the same idea. There's this part of our brain that's active when we think we're doing nothing. But it's not idle, not at all. More like a mental autopilot that never shuts off.
So like when you're spacing out, daydreaming, or, worrying, our source material has this vivid description of the DMN conjuring up images, even scary ones, like picture a ghost on a dark road, even if you've never actually seen one. Kind of creepy. But it really drives home the point that this network is powerful stuff.
Totally. From an evolutionary standpoint, the DMN was crucial. Helped us anticipate danger, plan for the future, all that. But these days, it's like it's stuck on overdrive, leading to anxiety, overthinking, and get this, studies show it can eat up to 90% of our mental energy.
90%? Seriously? What's left for actual creativity, for problem solving? I mean, if this DMN is hogging all the resources, what could we achieve if we could, reclaim even a fraction of that?
$1 million question, right? And what's exciting is that both ancient wisdom and modern science are giving us some answers. Buddhism, Taoism, that they've been working on this for centuries. And now neuroscience is catching up. It's offering some really fascinating insights into how to control this network.
Okay, now I'm really hooked. We've got a creativity thief in our brains, and we need to figure out how to stop it. So how do these ancient practices and cutting-edge science actually, help us? How do they unlock our full creative potential?
Well, let's start with this Buddhist idea of single-pointed concentration. The source material describes it beautifully. The phrase is chair. It means focusing all your mental energy on one point. Sound familiar? Think flow state.
Ah, flow state. That feeling of being totally absorbed in something, losing track of time. Ideas just flow effortlessly. We've all been there, right?
Exactly. And neuroscience is showing us that these flow states, they're linked to a big dip in DMN activity. It's like the brain gets quiet. And then, boom, creativity has the space to emerge.
So to unlock that creativity, we need to figure out how to get into this flow state, this single-pointed concentration. Any clues in the source material on how to get there?
There are, and this is where Taoism comes in, with a really fascinating principle called reversal. It's represented by the phrase chirohei. Basically, to understand something, you gotta look at its opposite. So to understand focus, we need to understand distraction, which in this case is the DMN itself.
So instead of just trying to force ourselves to focus, we need to actually become aware of the distractions, that mental chatter that pulls us away from what's happening right now. That's a really interesting way to look at it.
Precisely. And that's where mindfulness practices come in. Just by noticing our thoughts without judging them, we can start to detach. We can watch them come and go without getting swept away.
Our source material actually tells this captivating Zen story about Zhao Zhu and these two monks. Won't spoil it now, but it really highlights how important self-awareness is. Like asking yourself, who's in control right now? It's like we're often running on autopilot, totally unaware of what's driving our experiences.
Oh, that story's a classic. And it leads perfectly into the modern science. We're seeing this ancient wisdom validated by brain imaging studies. For example, research on elite musicians shows that during peak performance, their DMN activity plummets, like almost 40%.
Whoa, 40%. So these top-level musicians have somehow learned to quiet that mental noise and tap into this deep focus. I'm guessing that's how they achieve such incredible levels of performance.
You got it. But it's not just about silencing the DMN, it's about what happens because of it. They describe this time crystal shattering experience, like time actually slows down so they can process information and react super fast.
Wait, time slowing down? This is getting seriously trippy. Is this real or just some subjective thing?
It's backed by science. During these peak states, we see visual logic hyperthreading. The visual and logical parts of the brain link up, creating this crazy synergistic effect.
So they're seeing and thinking at the same time, like a human supercomputer.
And then there's the most incredible finding. Narrative dissolution. The inner critic shuts off, that voice that's constantly judging, evaluating.
So they silence that self-doubt, that fear, and perform with total freedom and confidence. Man, I can see how that would be a game changer. For anyone, not just musicians.
Totally. And here's the amazing thing. This isn't just for elite performers. It's a state we all have the potential to access. By learning to control our DMN, we can tap into that same effortless creativity and flow. It's about reclaiming that power.
Okay, so we've uncovered this creativity thief, this DMN lurking in our brains. We've seen how ancient wisdom and modern science both point to controlling this network if we want to unlock our creative potential. But how do we actually do it? Any practical techniques in our source material?
Absolutely. And it's surprisingly simple, yet powerful. A three-step method, drawing on both ancient wisdom and modern science.
All right, I'm ready. Let's hear those 3 steps. What's the first one?
It all starts with awareness. Remember, we've been talking about how this DMN can kind of hijack our attention without us even realizing it. This step is about noticing those patterns, those moments when your mind starts to wander, or you get caught up in that negative self-talk, or maybe you're just lost in thought. It's like becoming a detective of your own mind.
So we got to catch the DMN red-handed in the act of stealing our creativity, but how do we become more aware of it? It's so subtle.
Well, the source material talks about using sudden actions to kind of snap yourself back to the present moment. Think of it as a little nudge to wake yourself up from that daydream.
Okay, so like what kind of sudden action? Give me an example.
It could be something super simple, like clapping your hands, snapping your fingers. You could even shout a word. Sounds kind of strange, I know, but it's surprisingly effective. Interrupts that autopilot and brings you right back to the here and now.
Huh, that's actually pretty cool. It's like a mini shock to the system to disrupt those thought patterns. I'm gonna try that. So step 1 is recognizing when the DMN is running the show. What's step 2?
Step 2 is called sensory anchor. Once you've noticed that DMN hijack, you need a way to ground yourself back in reality. That's where this comes in. It means focusing really intensely on a specific physical sensation.
Sensory anchor. It's like dropping an anchor to stop yourself from drifting away in the sea of thoughts. I like that. But what kind of sensations are we talking about?
Could be anything you can actually experience through your senses. The texture of your clothes, the temperature of your coffee cup, even just feeling your feet on the ground. The key is to really zero in on that sensation. Explore it.
Seems so simple, but I bet it's powerful. Instead of getting lost in my head, I'm bringing my attention back to my body, back to this moment, like a reset button for the mind.
Exactly. And the source material emphasizes that it's not just about casually noticing it. It's about really immersing yourself in that sensation, becoming fully present with it.
I'm sensing a pattern here. First, we got to notice that mental chatter. Then we use a sensory anchor to ground ourselves in the present. What's the final step in this 3-step process?
This is where things get really interesting. It's called dual focus. We're going to challenge the brain here by doing tasks that need 2 or more points of attention at the same time.
So we're like overloading the DMN, giving it so much to do that it can't help but quiet down.
You got it. Think of it like a workout for your brain. The source material gives some great examples, like try drawing different shapes with each hand, or listen to music while you exercise. You could even try having a conversation while you're cooking.
Whoa, that's some serious mental juggling. I'm not sure I could draw a circle with one hand and a square with the other, but I get the concept. We're forcing our brains to work in a new way, disrupting the DMN's usual patterns, creating new neural pathways.
Exactly. And those new pathways, that's what leads to that enhanced creativity. It's
Right.
like we're rewiring our brains for creative thinking.
This is fascinating. So we've explored how both ancient wisdom and modern science agree. Controlling the DMN is key to unlocking creativity, and we've learned about this powerful 3-step method to actually do it. Is there anything else in the source material that can help us on this quest for creative mastery?
There's one more piece of the puzzle, and it's a fascinating insight from neuroscience. Researchers have discovered that newborns, they don't actually have a fully developed DMN.
Wait, seriously, so babies are basically living in a constant state of present moment awareness, free from all that mental chatter. No wonder they're so creative and playful.
It seems that way. And this ties in beautifully with a Taoist concept mentioned in the source material, returning to the infant state, or as it's written in Chinese. It's all about cultivating that same mindset of pure presence, just like a newborn, where creativity flows effortlessly.
So it's not just about controlling the DMN, it's about reclaiming that childlike wonder, that openness to experience. It's like tapping into that pure creativity we all had as kids before the DMN took over.
That's a brilliant way to put it. And it brings us to a crucial question. If babies are naturally creative because their DMNs aren't fully developed, Does that mean we're destined to lose that creativity as we get older? Are we doomed to be ruled by this overactive DMN?
Ooh, that's a pretty bleak thought. I'm hoping the answer is no. Is there any way to get that childlike creativity back, even as adults?
There is. And that's where the practices we've been talking about come in. Mindfulness, sensory anchors, dual focus techniques. These can actually rewire our brains, help us become more present, more playful, and ultimately more creative. It's not about erasing the DMN completely. It's about learning to work with it, to harness its power instead of letting it control us.
That's incredibly empowering. It means creativity isn't some fixed trait. It's a skill we can develop throughout our lives.
You got it. And there's actually scientific evidence to back up this idea of rewiring our brains for creativity. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and adapt. It's a well-established concept. And studies have shown that practicing mindfulness and these other techniques that target the DMN, they can lead to physical changes in the brain, strengthening the connections between areas associated with creativity, focus, and emotional regulation.
This is mind-blowing. We literally have the power to shape our own brains, to change the physical structure of our minds through practice. It's like we're sculpting our own creative potential.
Exactly. And the implications of that are huge. It means creativity isn't some elusive gift. It's a potential that's inside all of us, just waiting to be unlocked.
Okay, gotta admit, I'm feeling pretty inspired right now. We've been on this incredible journey exploring the depths of the DMN, uncovering its role in both hindering and enhancing creativity. We've seen how ancient wisdom and modern science agree that we can control this powerful network, and we've learned about practical techniques to do just that. But before we wrap up, one final question for our listeners. What if we could all tap into that childlike sense of wonder and creativity? What could we achieve if we could silence those inner critics and fully embrace the present moment? It's something to think about as we continue to explore this amazing creative mind.
It's a beautiful thought to leave our listeners with. Remember, the power to unlock your creativity, it lies within you.
Yeah, so we've got these incredible tools, right, to reclaim our creativity, quiet the DMN, tap into that childlike state. But honestly, sometimes it feels like the world we live in is designed to make us the opposite of present and mindful. We're constantly bombarded with information, notifications. It's like our brains are being pulled in a million directions at once.
You're so right. Our modern environment, it's like a DMN overdrive factory. But that's exactly why these ancient practices are more important now than ever. They give us a way to navigate this chaos, to find some stillness in the middle of all the craziness.
It's almost like a superpower, to be able to find that inner peace, that focus when everything around you is screaming for your attention. But I gotta ask, do these practices actually work in the real world? Can people with busy lives, jobs, families, can they actually achieve this kind of mental mastery?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. These practices have been around for centuries, passed down through generations. They're meant to be woven into everyday life, not just for monks in a monastery.
So it's not about becoming a monk or meditating for hours every day. It's about finding small ways to incorporate these ideas into our routines.
Exactly. And that's what's so great about these practices. They're adaptable, they're flexible, anyone can do them. You don't need any special equipment, no special training. You can practice mindfulness while you're doing the dishes, use sensory anchors on your commute, do dual focus activities with your kids. It's all about finding those moments throughout your day.
It's like finding those pockets of stillness, right? Those times when we can reconnect with ourselves and that creative energy.
And the more you do it, the easier it gets. Our brains are amazing. They're constantly adapting. With consistent effort, we can train ourselves to become more present, more focused, more creative.
Like building a mental muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Precisely. And just like any muscle, it takes time, it takes effort, but the payoff is huge.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. We've delved into this DMN, this powerful network that can either block or boost our creativity. We've seen how ancient wisdom and modern science agree. We can control this thing, and we've learned practical ways to do it.
And maybe most importantly, we've been reminded that creativity isn't some special talent. It's a potential that everyone has, just waiting to be unlocked.
It's been a true deep dive, that's for sure. And as we wrap up, one last thought for our listeners. What if, instead of seeing the DMN as this creativity thief, we thought of it as a creative ally? What if understanding how it works could help us enhance our creative potential?
Love that. Instead of fighting against the DMN, we learn to work with it, guide it in a direction that supports our creative goals.
We know that when the DMN is quiet, creativity can flow. But what if we could actually use the DMN's power to come up with new ideas?
Now that's an area ripe for exploration. Maybe by intentionally doing things that activate the DMN, like daydreaming, free association, we could tap into a different kind of creative process, one that's more intuitive, less structured.
That's a fascinating thought. So we're not just silencing the DMN, we're learning its language, understanding its patterns, and using that knowledge to fuel our creativity.
Exactly. Who knows what amazing breakthroughs we might find by embracing this new perspective.
Well, on that note of possibility and wonder, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Hope you've enjoyed exploring this amazing world of the DMN and its impact on creativity. And remember, the power to unlock your creative potential, it lies within you. Until next time, stay curious and keep diving deep.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated with our latest content. May they bring you mindfulness and warmth. Feel free to share the channel with your friends. You never know how much it could uplift their life. Until next time.